One book, a few chapters, and hundreds of pages have led us to this. Adventure, romance, the thrill of a lifetime, 1,000 lives that we get to explore. Join me. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the By Ashley Danny podcast with me, Ashley Danny. It is so good to be back for the last week of the summer series. And for some of you, this might be a little awkward because you're like, what summer series? This is literally your first video podcast that you are putting on your YouTube channel. And that's true. Guys, the By Ashley Danny podcast has come to video. Yes, I am recording in my podcast office studio, my work office. Pretty much it's just my overall office with some beautiful decor in the background. As you can see, I have a Haunted Mansion poster that my husband, he was fiance at the time, got me for Christmas. A Disney blanket that I got at one point. I got Stitch over here and Belle, who I believe are both from my best friend Sammy, who is also my podcaster, co-host on Pixie Dust Twins. I got one of my favorite masks from Italy, and of course I got books. It's not all my books, but I got some books. But for those watching, welcome to my space. For those who are listening on Spotify or whatever you are normally listening on, welcome back, and I'm excited to wrap up the summer mini-series with you today and give you a little heads up on where I am on everything that we talked about earlier this month. For those of you first time joining in, you can always go find my podcast on any podcast streaming site, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. Also, you can find my podcast on my website at byashleydanny.wordpress.com. But before we get into everything, before I kind of reintroduce myself now that you see me in person and get into the content today, we got to hear from our sponsors. So take a listen.
Hey, it's Robert from Limitless Broadcasting, reminding you to tune in to Limitless Broadcasting Network anywhere you get your podcasts, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify. Check us out today.
Yes. Go check out limitlessbroadcastingnetwork.com. The website is there for you to check out. They were just at Days of the Dead in Indy, and they do a lot of different conventions. Some that I am able to attend. I couldn't attend the Indy one this year or this month because I just moved with my husband. But I have attended others, and I'm going to try to attend more next year. So definitely go check them out. Check out all of our podcasts, Pixie Dust Twins, Can't Kill the Boogeyman, Partner Complex, Robbie Reviews, and The Truth About Living with Chronic Pain. I know I got that wrong, and Sammy will correct me later, but I was pretty darn close. All right. I do just want to do a little bit of a reintroduce of myself because I am now on this YouTube channel where I'm going to be posting my podcasts and other content that I have decided to start. Like I said, my name is Ashley Danny. I kind of came up with that pseudonym back in college, I believe, is when I decided to go there. It is a shortening of, it's my first name and then a shortening of my middle name. I just squished them together because I thought, you know what, someday I might get married, I might change my last name. There's no reason to use my last name in anything because it's probably going to change. So I am now Ashley Danny. That's where that comes from. But I've been in everything from podcasting to photography to I write, I read, I do some graphic design, like for myself, not for anybody else. But I have a lot of different creative hobbies that I love. And I tried doing this one. I tried doing video podcasting, and it was just too much at the time, and it's probably going to be too much now. But being a remote worker, I have a little bit more leeway of I don't have to worry about commuting or anything like that. So I can stop work from the day, like my normal day-to-day job, and then go straight into content creating or editing or whatever I need to do before I need to cook dinner or eat dinner or whatever I need to do that day. Other little things about myself. I live in Ohio now. I'd rather be in Florida, not gonna lie. I want to go back to Florida so bad. So bad. My counterpart Sammy is down there, and I lived down there for like 7 years, and then when I moved, she moved down, and then I moved back up Midwest, so we really miss each other there. I am newly married. It's been a little over a month now, and we have a dog, but she's my dog because I've had her longer. But I have a dog, Belle. You might hear her randomly bark or make noises in the background. She is in her crate, but so she's not running around in the background, but she doesn't like to stay quiet, so if you hear her, I apologize. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm really excited about today's episode and the content we're going to get into, because this summer I started off with like my summer recommended reading. I love usually reading some sort of a summer oriented book, whether it's the Au Pairs, whether it's something about, there was one called The Lifeguard, summer camp one, whatever, like summer themed books is what I usually love to read. It's not what I did this summer, but I gave you some recommendations the very first week of the mini series, which I think was the second week of June, maybe, sure. Something like that. But anyways, I gave you that recommendation, and then I told you the very next week that I was taking up a reading challenge for myself. It has been so long since I just read a lot, and I let life kind of get in the way of that. I would read here or there, maybe a book or two a year. I needed to read more. So I gave a challenge to myself for the year in January that I was going to read 12 books, which meant a book a month. I am super behind. I just finished book 4 of my 12, and it is July. So I should be working on book 7. I'm not. I'm working on book 5. Yes, 5. I am so behind. But I finally kind of woke up. I was planning a wedding too, so when you're planning a wedding and you have this whole new stage of life, so we're planning a wedding, we were moving to a whole new state, there was a lot going on, so I wasn't reading as much. I was reading, it was one book, and I read it for like 6 months, and the book I read for 6 months is this one right here, Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I think I said her last name right, I'm sorry if I didn't, because I read Fourth Wing last year, from October to November, I believe. I read it in like a month. I gulped this thing up. This one took me longer. And I will tell you why it took me longer, because today we are going to be reviewing not just Iron Flame, but also Fourth Wing. Because I have not done an episode on the podcast talking about what my thoughts are. So from this point on, spoilers, so much spoilers. I am going to tell you what happened. I'm going to talk about what happened. I'm going to talk about my feelings of what happened in book 1 and book 2. I have some theories that I'm going to talk about. So I need you to know, if you have not read these books yet, do not listen to my podcast, because you're going to hear things. Good? We done? Did you pause me? Stop me? Anyways, now it's just your fault if you continue to listen. Now, I did post a book review on my website, like a written book review on The Fourth Wing. It's really short. I was kind of mad at myself. I read through it. I'm like, this is horrible, but it's there. I didn't take it down. I actually have it on my iPad here. Just because I want to read the description for you if you don't know, or not the description, but kind of, actually I don't know what I'm doing, but anyways, it's a new adult fantasy and adventure novel published by Entangled Publishing, which oddly enough is having some issues right now. So hopefully that doesn't hurt us when we get the third book, which is going to be Onyx Storm. And pretty much, if you are that person who's never read the books and are listening to this podcast, it's about a 20-something-year-old named Violet. You're in a fantasy world that is not real. It's a whole world creation, which is one of my favorite things to read and write. And they're at this war college. Her mother is a general, and she thought that she was going to sign up to be a scribe, which is what she was training for her whole life. But her mother shoved her towards the dragon rider quadrant, where she thought she was going to die, but she didn't, because now we're in end of book 2 and she's still still very much alive. But I will tell you right now, like, I have been in such a dry spell when it comes to reading, and this book pulled me out of it. Especially if you love fantasy and adventure, this is a great book to pick up. Now, yes, you get to a certain point in this book and there is spice. I think on my I put it like a level 3 in my opinion on spice out of 5. I don't really read spicy books very often. I mean, I have some, but nothing that is like focused on it. It's usually like something like this where it's has a certain plot and it's just kind of involved in there. So there gets some spicy moments between Xaden and Violet later in the story, but really it's just about this girl who's trying to survive and learn who she is and what she is capable of, because she is this very brittle thing that should not be in the dragon writer's quadrant. Like, how she survived up through book 2, I am still beyond shocked as a reader. I'm like, why isn't she dead? How is she not dead? But she's not. She's there. And what was so fun when I was reading this is when you're reading this, she gets chosen not by one, by 2 dragons. And I know you guys are listening to this like, actually, we know what happens. But the reason I love it so much is because it's just, it brings that mystery to it where you're like, why did this second dragon come along? Why did this little Feathertail come out of nowhere? Why have we never seen a Feathertail? Because like no one's ever seen a Feathertail in the story. And when you get books like this where there's little things like that the author puts into the story for you to kind of like, ooh, that's new, but when are we going to learn about it? Like, they don't give us everything all at once. There are certain books, especially fantasy novels, where they shove everything at you in one book. And we're going to talk about one of those books that I read in a couple, probably, episodes for the reviews that I'm doing. But this book did not. Like, there are things that she hints at, now that I think about it, now going back and looking at the book after I've read Iron Flame, and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. And she gives you those little things. It really, if I have to compare my level of excitement of Fourth Wing, like compared to another series that excited me, I would compare it to Throne of Glass and Harry Potter. Like, Harry Potter was a huge series for me growing up. I was the generation that grew up with those books. It was huge, loved it. One of the reasons I love reading. I would suck those books up in like a day. And then I remember when Throne of Glass came out, and I remember reading the first book, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great book. And it was amazing. And I thought, oh, a standalone book. No, they're never standalone books. Do you know that? Never, ever, ever are they standalone books. I thought Throne of Glass was going to be a standalone. It was not. But I'm glad it wasn't, because that series was amazing. And actually, I'm going to reread it this winter after I do my fall books that I have planned to read. Because I don't remember, I started it when it started coming out, and I really don't remember much of it. And I still have too much of A Court of Thorn and Roses in my head. Not saying I don't like ACOTAR, but it is, for me, it is not the same level as Throne of Glass. I prefer Throne of Glass over ACOTAR. I'm sorry. Don't shoot me. I am a Throne of Glass, Elena or Elaine. I can never say her name right. She is my Sarah J. Maas books. Like, those are, when I think of Sarah J. Maas, I think of that series because it's just phenomenal. Not that ACOTAR is not, but I'm going to be honest, I didn't read past A Court of Mist and Thunder. I just couldn't. After A Court of Mist and Thunder, I have A Court of Wing and Ruin and I have A Court of Frost and Starlight, but I just have not had the urge to read them because I just don't. I kind of like how the second book ended, and I don't want to deal with the rest of the drama. Anyways, we're getting away from Fourth Wing. So I wish I had more to say about it and like specific things that I remember, but it's been almost a year since I read it, that I'm forgetting things, and I really wish I could remember more. Some of the relationships that I do love in this is I love Rihanna. I think that's how we say her name. That's how I'm going to say her name. And their friendship that blooms out of this. I think that the showdown between her and Jack in this book was very telling and very strong, in my opinion. I love that scene, and she gives us no indication of what's happened, like that Jack is not dead or barely alive. And again, spoilers, people. But yeah, this book honestly just kind of brought me out of my slump, and I'm very thankful for Rebecca and what she's done with that. Now, on a note of what's going on with her social media pages right now, I was gonna get to chapter 3. Apparently, she has taken this and put it as her social media icon right now. And everyone's like freaking out, like trying to figure out what it is, the Easter egg, all the things. I have no like dead set opinion, but I'm wondering if it's just really a marketing ploy to keep everyone interested, because Onyx Storm is coming up here in a couple months. It's really not a couple months, but I'm hoping it's a couple months. It kind of reminds me of T-Swift and kind of her marketing ploys with Easter eggs and keeping the Swifties on their feet with just different things they're trying to decipher. And I mean, I've not been a part of the book talk community very long, but I've been a reader my whole life, and I've never seen authors do stuff like this. An author do something like that, like Rebecca just did. So I'm curious to see what comes of the chapter 3. Part of me thinks she's gonna like go. I think she's gonna go forward instead of going backwards to, like, someone said she might be doing 3, 2, 1, whether it's days or weeks or months maybe. I think it'd be interesting if she went forward 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know what the significance of that would be, but I'm just curious. Anyways, so Fourth Wing, amazing book. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. One thing I will say is Rebecca really does know how to craft a world that any reader will get swept up in. It is one thing that I forgot that I put in here. It is one of those books where it is not just plot or character driven. A lot of books are either plot or character driven, or like majority plot or majority character driven. And I really feel like this book, and even into her next book, is very equal on those terms. She balances it so well because we need character development of Violet. We need to see her go from a scribe at heart to a dragon rider. We need to see those changes, that development in her. We need to see the development in Xaden, even though it's tiny. It's very tiny in this book. There's more development in my mind in the second book, but we need to see that development as well. So, and I feel like the plot cannot move in these stories without that character development. And there's a lot of books where usually when plot is plot driven is way up here and characters are down here, you don't see that development in the characters when the plot's driving the story along. But Rebecca, I believe, just has this great sense of control over her writing to be able to balance it. And you don't get that from many writers. There are very few writers who can do that. Again, J.K. Rowling is one in my book that I can think of. One back here, Rick Riordan, I feel like does a really good job of character development and plot driven. character-driven and plot-driven stories with his Lightning Thief stories. Throne of Glass, I think Sarah J. Maas, I don't think has a balance. I think hers is either plot or character driven. It's kind of more this way than here. Trying to think if there's anything else off the top of my head. Not that I can think of. But yeah, I think she does a really good job of balancing both to give us more. So, 5 out of 5. Definitely recommend if you love fantasy, adventure, dragons. I mean, come on. Who doesn't love dragons? Please. You need to read Fourth Wing. Or you should give this to somebody to read if you have already read it. Like, gift this to somebody. Don't gift them your book. Like, keep your book. I am a book dragon as well. I am a book hoarder. I must have my books. My poor husband still questions why I have so many books. I'm like, honey, I told you. I am a book hoarder. I love to have physical copies of my books. That's why I don't use library card. That's why I don't use a Kindle. I need this. I need the pages. I need it. So I would definitely give that to somebody to read if you think they would enjoy it. Now, Fourth Wing was all about fly or die. I love in Iron Flame. I love that we still have, and let's talk about these covers. Hold on, before we move on. Let's talk about these covers. They're very similar. I love it when they keep somewhat of a similar look. They don't have to be exactly the same look, but they need to keep similarities. So same font, same kind of cloud and dragon design. The color scheme is similar. You got gold fully in Fourth Wing. You got gold interlaid with the red in Iron Flame. And I mean, we have to change it because literally flame, red, and black, and all the things. So I love that they're keeping it similar. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Some people want it just exactly the same. I don't care for that. But I do like that they keep them similar. Another thing I love is the little saying. So on Fourth Wing, it's fly or die. This one is burn it down. And yeah, burn it down pretty much sums it up. So Iron Flame, first off, 10 out of 5. Holy crap, it was so good. But it took me so long to read it. Hold on, let me get open my book journal. So I use an app called Ziana. I don't know. But I have a book journal in here, which the fact that I have a book journal in a electronic format is crazy. But I absolutely love it because I have an Apple Pen and I write, and it's amazing. But anyways, let's see here. Sorry guys, Iron Flame. Okay, so I started Iron Flame. Oh, I started in March. Okay, I didn't get it till March, so it didn't take me as long. March to June, but still, that's long for me. Usually, I read a book in a month. This took me multiple months, and I don't know why it took me so long. You know what? I really should have looked at my reading journal before we moved on. I do just want to touch base on the fact that we lost Liam. I know, but I gotta talk about it because I gotta talk about Sloane. So, no, we'll just talk about it when I get to Sloane. Anyways, Iron Flame, great second book. Like I said, 10 out of 5, absolutely loved it, but it took me forever, and I know why now. Because this book should have been 3 books. Seriously. So the first part, we have her trying to survive from what's-his-face. I've already forgotten his name because he's dead to me because they killed him. What's-his-face starts with a V. You know who I'm talking about. I'm really, really bad with names. Really bad with names. I should write these things down. You guys know me. Well, the ones who listen to me. But whoever the person in charge of the school was after Dane's father got kicked out. Oh my gosh. That whole part of this book should have been its own flippin' story. Her trying to not die of her signet, her getting tortured, her all these things. That could have been its own. I feel like that could have been its own book. And she might have done book 1 and book 2 in here. I can't remember. And then the second part of them going to Xaden's home in Tyronder. Again, really bad with names. And that should have been a whole second book, especially bringing the flyers in and the trial that they had to do together going up the mountain and learn just all of it. Oh my gosh. It was 2 books shoved into one. But you know what? Rebecca still did a great job in this book. This book reminds me of like reading Goblet of Fire, because there's so much going on. Oh my goodness, so much going on. And the redemption arc of Dane, so much. But a couple things I want to hit on with Iron Flame. Sloane, right away, dear Lord, when she walked in and she wasn't like buddy with Violet, she was actually ticked. She hated her for the fact that Liam, her brother, died protecting Violence, and just was a total B to V. B to V. Anyways, was perfect. Like I feel like a lot of authors would have had that relationship mend very quickly or them commemorate or mourn together, and she didn't. She took a totally different route than what I feel like a lot of authors would have done. And it was perfect. Like the realistic interactions between that, the just the level of, not even drama. I don't even want to say drama, but the level of, I don't know. I know it's a fantasy world, but it felt like if this wasn't a fantasy world, if we took out the dragons, if we took out everything and you were just in war, I feel like this is how they would be interacting with each other, because dealing with loss, dealing with torture, dealing with all these different things. Like, I feel like she did such a good job on her research, such a good job on the characters and the dialogue and the interactions and just describing it. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful to read. Probably another reason why it took me so long, because I was just, absorbing it. And you got Xaden, you got this whole relationship with Xaden and Violet, and just them trying to, Xaden's like, I'm in love with you, but I know you're not there, but I love you. And this whole kind of switch. A lot of romance books that I've read when I was younger, like with my realistic fiction books that I would read, was normally the guy being distant and the girl like trying to do whatever she could to earn his trust. And we have it flipped on this one. I know our culture has changed, so we kind of see that coming out in a lot of our stuff, but I love that it's flipped, that he is trying to get her to open up and find and express her feelings and like break down those walls. And it just, none of this came easily. There are sometimes we read books and it just comes way too easily to the characters, and it doesn't in this one. And I'm so thankful for it. So thankful for it, because it created a lot of suspense. It created a lot of tension. I mean, come on, girls. How many of you, even when it didn't get spicy, how many of you were just like curling your toes at ways she described them looking at each other or talking to each other? You're like, holy crap. Oh my gosh. No, in reality, we would never want our boyfriends, husbands, wives, partners, whoever, to talk to us like that, because it honestly would be very degrading in some way, shape, or form. But for some reason, we like it in our fantasy. I don't know. Let's see here. Why she didn't kill him herself? I don't remember what that was about. Anywho, when they brought the flyers in, I thought that was interesting. The scene of Mom finding out that Brennan was still alive, the scene of Mira finding out that Brennan was still alive, like all of that family kind of interactions was some of my favorite, especially when Mom came around, because you could just see her tornness. You could see just the torture she was putting herself through. It was a lot. I was also really glad that she didn't have her put up the ward stones right away, and that when she did finally do it, it was a failure because she didn't have it right. Like, there's just so much that Rebecca really put into this story to make it the 10 stars that it is. Sometimes I feel like some stories just like, oh, okay, it worked, or oh, okay, it did this. And one of those books is something I'm reading kind of right now that I'll talk about later. Doesn't mean that they're not great books, but it's just, there's this realistic factor within the fantasy, which is really cool, that I don't think we get very often with books. And one thing that I really want to touch base on before I give you my final stuff for Fourth Wing and Iron Flame is Xaden at the end. The final battle was spectacular. Like, how could you not love that battle and feel what was going on? Like, I felt like I was in that battle. I felt like I was right there next to Violet, writing Tarn when she never would, because I'm not the person he chose, but like, I felt like I was there. And the emotion, she's like worrying about Xaden, and she's like, but I can't, I gotta do my part. And she doesn't know where he is. And when they walked into that battle, I remember reading the scene about Xaden saying, like, that mage, that sage, the main Venin, who was against them, wanting honestly to get to Violet. He said he had a connection with him, that he was going after, like, the sage was going after Xaden. And I'm sitting here reading this, I'm like, no, he's not. What are you doing? What are you talking about? And I should have seen it. It was such a foreshadowing moment of like, oh, crud, no. So when that very last book, again, spoilers, that very last moment when Violet sees him and he has red in his eyes, he's like, he's dead, but the only way he could have killed him was to become one himself. Like, he should have just let him go to Violet, and Violet would have taken care of him. Violet would have taken him out. I don't understand. That is the one thing in this book I don't understand, of why all of a sudden, like, this whole time we are seeing Violet's interaction and dreams and all the things with the sage, and then all of a sudden Xaden says he's connected to him, and this happens. Like, we know, like, there's nothing about the sage going after Xaden at all in the book, and then it just trips it. And I think that's what hurts the most for me, is like, where the heck did this come from? When did this happen? Like, why are all of a sudden Xaden have this weird connection with the Venin? Like, I don't understand it. So I need that explanation in the next book. So honestly, I'd probably take 1/4 point off because of that, because it's just, I'm like, what? Pretty sure, like, right after I finished the book, I did the sound, pour me another drop of whiskey, another round of whiskey, or whatever that sound is. And it really was. I really just wanted to go grab a drink after reading that, because it felt like the world crumbled around me when he had the red around his eye. And it's like, oh no. Especially when he started saying, well, you'd be safer here and all the things because of the ward stones. I'm like, oh no, don't, no. No, Jack Barlow becoming a Venin, and in Fourth Wing, and we don't know about it until they brought him back to life, and all the things in Iron Flame I thought was really cool and made sense. But Xaden, ugh, poor boy. I feel so bad for Violet. So, Rebecca, as all of us have been saying, make haste. Get us this book quickly. Like, I don't want to rush the year, but I want to rush the book. Like, let's go, people. So yeah, that is my review and ramblings of the Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I'm sorry it wasn't more structured, but I'm really not a structured person. So definitely 5 out of 5 for both books. Definitely recommend. Can't wait for Onyx Storm. I don't normally pre-order books, but I will be pre-ordering that book. That book will be pre-ordered for me to pick up hard copy. Like, I'm super, super excited. So if you're watching YouTube, I'd love for you to comment below. Tell me what your thoughts were. What did you rate it? What were your favorite parts? What are you mad about? What theories do you have? What's going on? Like, I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. If you're listening, go find me on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok by Ashley Danie, Dannie, or go to my website by ashleydanie.wordpress.com. All of the links should be below in the show notes, description, whatever you want to call it. But I am so happy to have had this summer together. I will be doing more book reviews randomly on YouTube and putting them on TikTok and Instagram. They won't be on Spotify, at least I don't think right away. But definitely here, I'm going to try to get more of a presence on YouTube. So I'm super excited for that. So be on the lookout for it. Have a great rest of your summer. And you know what? Open the pages of a book and go on an adventure. And if you'd like me to come along, let me know what book it is in the comments and I'll look into it. Bye, family.